What's up, everyone? My name is Joshua BurntSanctuary Keller, and this is the first episode of my new series, Get to Know, where I will be interviewing personalities in esports and also in gaming. So don't forget, if you like it, to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because that will really help me a lot here to grow the series as well. And my first guest for my first interview is gonna be Jamie TheEternalJay Martin, an old colleague of mine. We worked a lot together in the past. You are known as a play-by-play commentator, especially in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but also in Rocket League as well. You have started in 2016, so you are in the business since 5 years already. And yeah, just recently, I'm really happy for you as well. I was super happy when I heard the news. As you had such a big achievement. And I think that's like of any caster who's like working their way up, that is the dream. That event is just the dream. It is like the cathedral of like Counter-Strike or even of esports. You casted the Intel Extreme Master 16 in Cologne. Yeah, I mean that's just amazing, and that just shows how far you have come here in casting as well, with your strong voice. And I always have said you have such an amazing voice for play-by-play, and you've done it finally. I mean, there's still more room to grow as well, but you are doing amazing work. So I've talked enough. Let's get going with you. Introduce yourself even further.
Oh, small correction to your bit. I actually started in 2015, actually, October 2015. So I'm approaching 6 years being in the industry from like the very first cast I ever done, which was some terrible student league that doesn't even exist anymore. I've been doing this for a while, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Most recently, I think a lot of people are going to recognize me from IEM Cologne. Prior to that, I got the chance to do Katowice, which was not quite from studio, but it was a bit of a big deal at the time. And 2020 and 2021 has just been I think my most successful years in the industry.
For sure.
You mentioned, obviously, I've done Counter-Strike and Rocket League. I was pretty big in the Rocket League space. I've dipped in and out of the other games here and there, but right now everything's full steam ahead with Counter-Strike, and I'm really excited as well because next week is going to be the start of the new season. We're going to carry forward to the end of the year, and Dweg and I are going to carry our momentum further forward and try to see how much further we can take this before the end of 21.
Yeah, for sure. Just to note, when he's talking about next week, we are recording this right now in the middle of August as well. I'm not sure when exactly I will release this interview. I got the 2016 from your Liquipedia. We might need to fix that later on as well anyway.
See, the problem with Liquipedia is that there's a certain threshold of where they just stop caring about all the lower level tournaments, because there are so many things going on.
True.
And they won't know about the UK CS:GO weeklies and stuff like that. They won't know about those tournaments. And I don't even think the Skila stuff is even registered on Liquipedia for me. I don't even know. Do they even have pages on Liquipedia for Skila? I can't remember.
I can't remember, but that was the first tournament we casted together, and I got to know a lot of other bigger personalities. I actually casted it with Tom Pickering, with Zash as well. So yeah, that's where a lot of casters who have grown, or Tom Pickering not only as a caster, of course as well. I mean, he moved to Malta. He moved back now to the UK, I think. But yeah, a lot of those came from Skilla, where we worked together. But I'm not sure if they are actually on the page. It wasn't my first event, either. So. I got to know a lot of people, including you, through it for sure. Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's on there, but you can always edit it yourself as well. So I think someone probably edited it in for you. I was just the game is. Yeah.
So what happens with Liquipedia pages, and the reason why I don't edit them, because I always break them. I try to add an updated photo of myself to my Rocket League Liquipedia page. I actually had one of the Liquipedia main editors for Rocket League actually come in and do it for me, because I completely broke the website. So I don't touch wiki code or anything like that. I don't know what I'm doing. I usually leave that to the experts, and if I need something done, I'll just ask them to do it. But it's not a priority thing for me to to put that up, especially when, you know, right now I'm not the most busy that I've ever been. So maybe I'll hit like Marbot or someone like that up and just say, hey, saw me out. You know, just add that little bit of history that probably no one cares about at this stage, but I care a little bit, you know.
Yeah. So anyways, so you didn't start in 2016, you actually started in 2015, man. Let's get the answer. How did you actually get into it? Like, how did you get into casting? Was it just like, yeah, okay, you saw someone tweeting out about it, or how did you start?
It was a bit of a weird one because at the time I was at university. 2015 was my first year at uni. I'd moved in, I'd gotten settled down, I'd done all my stuff, and I was really proficient at what it was I was doing at the time because I was a student of media and radio in particular. And so I signed up with with my university's gaming society. We created a Counter-Strike team and we started competing in the student league. It's not the Newell. A lot of people are going to say you competed in Newell. It wasn't the Newell. It was something completely different. And you know, we were, you know, constantly just like doing our matches. We did a couple of weeks of action, and then there was a forum post on the website saying, hey, we're looking for broadcasters and commentators who would like to, you know, who have knowledge of the game to be able to give it a shot. So I was like, all right, well, I mean, I've got the background and the skill set. I've never done this in my entire life, but fuck it, let's go. Let's see what we can do. So I tossed my name into the ring. I recorded like a GoTV VOD because back in the day, I don't know if they still have this on Counter-Strike, but back in the day, you could load up like a GoTV tab and just watch some random matchmaking games. So I just clicked on it.
I think they still do.
Yeah, maybe they do, but I just clicked on it. I just hit record on OBS and I just started commentating, and then I send that in as my, like, you know, starting reel. And then they took a look at it and they were like, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to, we can reschedule some of the matches and we can give you some airtime. And that was the first ever thing. Unfortunately, it didn't last more than one semester. So by the time Christmas came around, we did our final showdown. January came, there were plans to do season 2, but they never came to fruition. So kind of hit a dead end on that. And then afterwards, a website called ukcsgo.com said, hey, we want to do a weekly tournament series. Is anybody interested? And I'm like, all right, well, here are these VODs I've done from the student league. Hit me up. Before that, there was another tournament called JGL, which didn't, you know, respond to any of their applicants. Shout out to Weef because he was managing JGL at the time, and he never got my application. Good friends with Tom, obviously. But, you know, that's always going to be a black mark on our friendship. But UK CS:GO came along. They did their weekly tournaments. I said, yeah. Here you go. You know, if you're looking for commentators, I'm new, and again, you know, I'd love to do it. And you know, there was some really good plans in place at the time. They also did the county championship, which was a big thing for the UK circuit at the time. So it was a big thing for me because it was like, oh, this could be my doorway forward. And then, you know, one thing led to another. From UK CS:GO, I got recommended to places like Epic Land and iSeries and Skiller. Obviously, it was actually Broad that brought me in because I think that he was saying, oh yeah, no, we've got I've got this project coming up. Do you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, I'll do Skiller. And then just one thing led to another. I got new contacts, and then everything just kind of spiraled out from there. It's funny too because like describing that like whole process very different to the way that commentators come up in the modern day now. So I think it's a nice little bit of you know, a bit of a history lesson for all you young little whippersnappers out there.
Back
didn't
in
know
my
how
day.
I came up in the industry. Yeah.
All right, yeah, but you made a long way. As I mentioned earlier, you were casting IEM Cologne this year, and how did you feel? Like, how did you get contacted about it, and how did the news hit you? Because you probably were just like, IEM Cologne, are you joking?
Well, for starters, we got caught so far off guard with Cologne because we're a month because last year for Cologne they had, I think it was the Aussie guys from ESL Australia doing the B stream stuff. So we expected that they were probably going to do it again because we hadn't been contacted. Usually if you're going to set up a studio, it takes a few weeks to do so. So the days coming by, the weeks go by, we didn't get asked, and it was about like a week and a half prior and we still weren't asked.
And you were like,
and it was like, okay, well, we're just not gonna get IEM Cologne. I mean, it's a stretch, and I'm not too fussed because, you know, I don't think that, you know, I think there's many great options for casters to do a B stream of Cologne, and even though we've worked very often with ESL this year, I wouldn't be, you know, too miffed if Dinko and Hawker or someone like Vince, for example, got B stream over us, because those guys have been doing B streams as well this year. So I was like, you win some, you lose some. It is what it is. You know, we'll just focus on something else. 7 days prior to when they wanted us to arrive in Sweden, we get the message, "Hi, we'd like you to come to Sweden and work IEM Cologne." I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what? Like, a part of it was, yes, great, awesome.
Yeah.
Like, this is a really cool thing. But another part of me was really pissed off because we had also booked work in for that week. So we had to cancel that, quickly reschedule, quickly do everything, and get on, you know, and get on with this. And a week to organize a studio event, I didn't think it was even possible to do that. And again, it caught us so far off guard. But at the same time, we were also like, it's Cologne, you know. We can't turn this down.
Sure,
if you turn down Cologne, then you're mad. You're absolutely mad to do that.
Yeah, I agreed, for sure. So yeah, I mean, what was actually, if you had a week time, how did you even prep for the event then, with all the time you had left? You didn't?
Didn't. Pretty much. No. I've kind of been like doing like mini bits of preparation here and there. As tournaments go by, I sort of like keep like a database updated of like storylines I want to chase. And Dweg kind of does the same thing. But up until the day before the flight, we were working. We were actually doing stuff for Eliza. Eliza Invitational, we were working on that for the entire like 2 months prior. The final day was right there, and then the next day had to pack our things and go fly. So in terms of like in-depth preparation, it was just kind of based off what I was already had on my database and other notes from previous tournaments, adapt that, update it, and bring it into the tournament, which for me personally is pretty easy to do because I'm a play-by-play.
Of course.
The storylines carry on, so you can just sort of take a look at a Liquipedia page and sort of piece together bits and pieces and come and bring a cohesive narrative to the fold with very little in terms of the in-depth knowledge of the game itself. So I mean, for Dweg, he was very, very annoyed because he was just like, fuck, I've got to go through all this. And we were also doing content for Gosu Gamers at the time. I pulled an all-nighter the night before the flight to finish my last Gosu Gamers video because it had to release during the time we were in Sweden, and I couldn't record and edit in Sweden, so I had to sort all that out and get it done, and send it in like literally like, you know, a couple hours before I left to go to go to the airport. So it was a mad time at the time, very, very hectic. It was great, but again, like, it was just one of those things. It's like, you know, couldn't you have asked us like a week earlier? That way we could have prepared a bit better. Yeah, I mean, it came out good in the end. We got positive feedback from both ESL and the audience. So, well, the audience that, you know, aren't on Reddit. But, you know, in
Twitch
general,
chat.
it seemed like it was all positive by the end. Twitch chat as well. But in general, I think the people that mattered, you know, thought that we did good. And I think that's the best thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's important. I think they also know, hey, you had a one week time, you're busy anyway. So for that, I mean, you did fabulous. And I think most of the time you look at yourself and you're just like, wow, I could have done so much better. And everyone else is like, you did well, what the hell? So you often like you're criticizing yourself, and then just like everyone else would be like, yeah, it was great. And obviously that's a good thing, and that's what you need as a caster to actually, you know, grind and get further and get as far and of course even further as you have come already. And yeah, obviously a lot of struggles, but I want to hear the story about I think, which in the end was the biggest struggle, and that was you almost not even making it. What actually happened there? Okay.
So, if anyone remembers from the Cologne B stream, you'll know that actually I wasn't there for day one of the show. The reason was because we were flying in the day before everything was set to start, and for everything to do that, for us to be able to do that successfully, everything had to go right. And with the COVID restrictions in place, the fact that the UK are no longer in the EU anymore, there had to be extra steps put in place to be able to get me to Sweden. So first of all, for Sweden, it's pretty easy to get in there for work reasons. Like if you have a declaration of work from your employer, then you can get through pretty nicely. They have an extra restriction of it being necessary work, which, you know, is debatable what that is in Sweden, but it is what it is. And the other thing you also need to do is get a COVID test. For those of you who don't know, you need a very specific kind of COVID test, and it needs to be done within a certain PCR test with a fit to fly certificate. If you can, and you have to get it within a certain window. For Sweden, I was told 48 hours prior to departure. This is what ESL said. This is what the airliner said. This is what the Swedish embassy said. This is what the UK government said to me 48 hours prior to departure. The first person who told me 48 hours prior to arrival were the people at the border control. So they took a look at my test, said, this is an hour out of date. We cannot let you through. And I was like, no, no, you cannot be serious. 1 hour off. A single hour made the difference between me being able to, go through and get through day one of the show without issue. And the thing about it is that if you do a test, like if you do what I was doing, which was do your tests for basically there's two types of PCR tests you can get. One that does like a result like the night of when you get the result, or you can do one that does it within 4 hours. I didn't want to do the 4 hour one because it's expensive, and I did the one where you do it and you get it done. You get it done at a clinic, and the clinic and the clinic will send you the results by nighttime. But because of the nature of scheduling appointments and the nature of the beast, essentially, when it comes to UK health, I had to get it exactly 47 hours prior to the flight, because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten a test at all. So that basically screwed me, because it was, all right, at 47 hours, that's within the window of departure. And then that curveball got thrown towards me and DreamHack. And fortunately, ESL and DreamHack were very, very sympathetic to that whole scenario, because that's what they were told. That's what I was told. Everyone except for that border officer said to me, 48 hours prior to departure. And even then, the airliner should have known this as well. Like, the airliner should have stopped me right there and then and say, this test is invalid, you cannot fly. So
that's true.
Essentially what happened with the flight, and the reason why I couldn't get into Sweden the first go around, was just an amalgamation of fuck-ups from a bunch of people who didn't give enough of a shit. And it was enough people that to the point where it messed up the first day of the show. It messed up my travel plans and everything like that. I had to stay overnight in the terminal because they had to send me back home because they wouldn't let me through the border, which was a very, very not so fun time. If you've ever, let's put it this way: if you've ever been in an airport and you sat in one of those seats in the terminal and you think that they're a little bit uncomfortable, try sleeping in that. Doesn't work. It really doesn't work. The whole ordeal was extremely stressful. I didn't sleep at all that night. And as well as that, to go back to the Ghost of Gamers thing, I was doing work for Ghost of Gamers. I pulled an all-nighter to get that video finished. So I basically didn't sleep for about, 48, 50 hours or so. And then I get to the hotel, and like once I finally got through the second time, it was like a bit of a relief moment. And getting to the hotel, it was just like, shower, sleep, good night. I'm out. That's me done. I'm finally going to catch up on everything. And the thing that pisses me off about this, however, and it's something that honestly I would have been more sympathetic if this wasn't the case, but the first and last people, and the only two people I saw actually like following COVID restrictions and wearing masks and stuff, were the border police. No taxi driver. Okay, sorry. I lied. The hotel staff as well were wearing like masks and stuff. But no taxi driver, no barman, no citizen on the street. No one was following social distancing, and no one was wearing a mask. So even to the point where on the final day, when we were done with our broadcast, Dweg and I actually went to a bar where we got to watch the Euro finals, which was a fun time. But even then, very packed, no spaced out tables, nothing at all, no restrictions, no nothing. So if they were taking it super seriously in Sweden, and they were really properly going off it and making sure that, everything was on lockdown and no one was able to spread the virus, then I could sympathize with the position of the border officer. But the fact that nobody did, that was the real just sort of, fuck this place sort of thing. It really annoyed me when I saw when that happened, because I just gone through essentially 48 hours of hell to get to this point, to get to where I was. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, ESL was super sympathetic about it. They never had anything like that happen. There was also this incident where the border officer. Yeah, I mean, the border officer even said to me, is like, listen, even if you had a COVID test, I probably wouldn't let you in on this, like, document, this work declaration, because it's probably not considered necessary work. Essentially, the declaration just says, we are DreamHack ESL, we operate in Stockholm, we do this, we're inviting Jay we're inviting the citizen, Jamie Martin, to, you know, come to us and do these broadcasts for our business. And they were like, we don't think this is necessary work, so we wouldn't even let you in on that basis. And that really terrified me, because I was like, wait, so if I try and go there and come back again, will they even let me in with a valid COVID test? Fortunately, they did. And fortunately for Hawker, Dinko, and Dweg, they didn't have any problems either. So it was just me that had the issue. And I was just... I mean, there was a part of me that was happy about that, but there was also a part of me that was just like, fuck this. You know, like, it was probably the most stressful time in my life. I would admit, I did start losing hair, which is not very encouraging. I mean, it's kind of encouraging because there's plenty of it to back it up, but there was also just... Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want you to lose your hair, because I feel like your hair is kind of iconic. So, you know,
yeah, it is.
Like, I wouldn't wanna imagine you without your hair. So, yeah, good that didn't happen.
Yeah, but unfortunately, most of it did work out after I got through the border the second time, and you know, there was constant contact from you know, the people on the ground at DreamHack, and everybody else who was involved in the process. Even Joe Miller was being, you know, looped into the whole situation, and he was giving suggestions on what we should be done. And of course, he's also dealing with the talent on the A stream as well. So
yeah,
he's probably just distressed with everything going on. So, you know, like, you know, just shout out to everybody at ESL, because like, as much as it was a shit situation, as much as I was stressed, it could have been much more stressful without their involvement and without their, you know, their care. So shout outs to all of them, because they really did a cracking job. And I think it was probably the best project I've been involved in despite that. So, you know, 2 thumbs up for me.
Mean, I would still hope so. And yeah, I wouldn't imagine if you had to go through this and everyone else would be like, yeah, well, that's not our problem. So, but anyways, obviously this wasn't... Yeah. I mean, for esports, that would be kind of typical, but definitely not for ESL. That must be said. But there are some esports companies where I wouldn't even be surprised. But ESL, for sure not. I think ESL, they do a lot of things right. They are, like, obviously, I mean... They are the ones you really look up to, and they are in the business.
I mean, like, I know that ESL have taken like a lot of shit in the last like couple of years, but in terms of like from a talent perspective, like I can't fault them. You know, they've been very receptive to feedback over the years. There's never been a time where I've like given them something to say, hey, can we try and fix this, or can we try and improve that for the next show? And there's never been a moment where I felt like that hasn't been heard or that hasn't been received. I mean, the other day we were actually in a meeting with the talent guys, talking about, you know, future, talking about particularly with ESCA Premier about rates and things and everything going forward into 2022. So they've been really receptive to us, and it's not just me that shares that experience. So, you know, if I had to work with one company, it probably, I mean, you know, size and industry sort of like dominance notwithstanding, it probably would have to be ESL, because they do treat you right, and that has been the case across every single tournament I've worked with ESL, both online and offline.
Yeah, that's for sure great to hear. But let's move on to Dweg, and you, of course, you have been the casting duo not only for IEM Cologne, but since quite a while. I'm actually not entirely sure when you kind of started doing up, but I mean, walk me through it. How did it start? How were you like, hey, let's work together, let's work on events, and let's grow together as duo casters?
So I think, as you might know, actually, like, going back prior to like the end of 2019, I was very against the idea of a duo, because I just didn't really see my value in it. Like for me personally, whenever I work with a commentator, the vast majority of them I can sort of gel pretty well with, but there's no one that I really sort of click with and think that I could work with this guy day in and day out, you know, for every single broadcast that I do. And it was one of those things where it's like, you know, come 2019, where there were things going on in my my life and my position in the industry where that had sort of started to change. In particular, there was the Grosvenor series, which was, for those of you who don't know what Grosvenor are, they're like a casino in the UK, and they were sponsoring a bunch of tournaments being done for the UK Counter-Strike circuit. And one of those events was done in Cardiff, where I was working with Dweg. And it was one of the very, very few times, I'm not going to say it's never happened to me, because there has been moments where I have clicked with a commentator, and that has, usually ended up with great results. But I think Dweg was the third guy that I ever properly clicked with. And, that night after everything was done, the event was difficult because it was a 4-man team, casters included. So it was a very, very small scale sort of thing, but it was also a job, and the job needed to be done. So afterwards, we all went out, all went to the hotel bar for beers and what have you. Dweg and I were the last two up, and we were just sort of discussing about, career paths and everything that was going on. This might have been about, March time, 2019, I think. Somewhere early, like Q1, Q2 of the year. And there was a real big discussion. It was like, hey, if you want to try duo, I mean, look, and Dweg was like, if you want to try duo, I'm transitioning into more of a color caster myself, because I don't really, I feel like that, my best skill set does not lie in the play-by-play element, and yours does. So there was that discussion initially, and we sort of talked about it for a bit, and went back and forth online. A couple of weeks later, he gets his job as an intern with Blast. So that whole thing gets put on the back burner. So then I just go back, all right, well, I'll just return to doing more solo work, which was fine, because I think it was the minor qualifier at the time that was going on, so that was all solo casted work anyway, so I didn't need to worry about doing a duo. And it felt like for the foreseeable future that I was going to be it felt like for the foreseeable future I was going to be in that sort of like solo pit, essentially. And a few things happened here and there. I went to America, did MDL finals, and did other things. Where MDL finals, actually the fourth time I ever clicked with someone, which was Henry G. What history could have done with that? And then I came back to the UK, do a few more things, Star Series, and around about September, October time, Dweg's contract's up with Blast. He decides. Well, I mean, I came to the UK because for those who don't know what Dweg's story is, he's an Aussie. So he's come all the way from Australia, moved to the UK specifically to pursue casting in Europe. And I mean, the Blast job is definitely something that you can't really turn down given the opportunity. And definitely he took the opportunity as and when. I don't blame him for that. But come time the end of his contract, he was just like, well, I'm not doing any casting. And he can't do casting because he was under exclusivity with Blast, and obviously he can't really do ESL stuff or, DreamHack or, I don't know, Gfinity were operating at the time, so couldn't do any of that work with them. And Dweg was like, well, I mean, I'm not doing the one thing I came here for. So it was either a case for him that he could take the safe job and renew the contract, or he could leave. So he invited me out to Korean barbecue, my first ever Korean barbecue, by the way. And we just sort of discussed things, and we talked things through, and we, just seeing where, our careers and where our lives were going at that point. And Dweg was very high on the idea of reigniting the conversations that we were having at the beginning of the year and saying, hey, why don't we try the duo thing again? And we conceptualized a whole bunch of ideas. We wanted to create a broadcasting studio, which was really, really a big sort of deal at the time because nobody else was doing that. No one was doing like a 2-person studio thing. So we were going to make a massive deal out of that, and we were going to build it. And essentially, like, everything started coming together. And then we started to do Loot Bet, I think was I can't remember if it was season 4 or season 5. They were very close together. But UCC were hiring, and we were like, right, well, let's just go with something very small, something very simple, so we can start to work out the intricacies of what it is of our roles, our casting styles, our duo partnership, as it were, and go from there. And then we also got stuff like Polish Championship as well, which ESL hit me up for, and they were like, if you can find a duo, we'd love to have it as a duo cast. And I'm like, well, I just started this duo with Dweg, so let's have some fun. So we did that, and then that was where the ESL relationship started. That's where they started to see us as a really good duo, and everything sort of like just came together over the course of the months and the weeks and stuff. We went hard into building the studio, had some really good fun times with that, messed it up fantastically, and then we actually hired some people to actually build it for us because we're just fucking incompetent people. And 2020 became the year where we established ourselves. We worked with a lot of different people, a lot of days of work, a lot of events listed, and then 2021 has basically been the same thing. I think the right phrase is the rest is history, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. And so that has been quite a story, but obviously you were first the guy to say, hey, I want to solo cast, but now you are duo casting with Dweg, which of course got you to places.
I don't mean to. Sorry.
Sure, go.
It wasn't that I said that. It wasn't that I wanted to solo cast. It was just that I didn't want to have a solid duo because I didn't feel like I was the kind of guy that could work on it. Just to clarify that, just to make sure that there's no misconceptions about what it was.
Yeah, of course. Anyways, what I want to lead to is how much has it changed now that you didn't have like a duo to work with to now working with Dweg? Because obviously you talk about, hey, there's gonna be synergy building up. There's gonna be prep you do together instead of just always like kind of doing it more alone by yourself and always switching up whoever you cast with or even solo cast. So how much did this kind of change from going kind of like solo and match with whoever you get matched up with to going now to a duo caster?
I think that honestly it was a change for the positive and for the better, just because everything that I was doing at the time was just so dry. I think by the end of 2019 it just sort of came to a point where duoing with different people, or the thing that I was doing the most at the time, solo casting, was just it was getting old. It was getting really old.
And for sure.
I could hear that. Like I remember very vividly, like going through my show reel at the end of 2019, or towards the tail end of 2019, sort of like trying to figure out which tournaments and clips I wanted to feature. And the ones I was mostly focused on was Star Series at the time. And I look at the Star Series qualifiers and I was like, man, this is terrible. Like, this is actually really bad. So it was reinvigorating in the sense that I think that I'd gone as far as I could with the old sort of mentality.
Yeah.
And as well as that, like in terms of like logistics and in terms of like development as a commentator, like it's much easier to have that one guy that you can rely on to be able to build you up, because he's relying on you as much as you're relying on yourself, and vice versa. So in that sense, it's been a bit of like there's been a lot more teamwork involved. There's been a lot more like a drive to improve each other, because I mean, as a commentator, when you're working with different duos, it's a little bit difficult to turn around and start giving like major feedback sessions, just because you don't have the same sort of relationship that Dweg and I do, because we've been working together almost every day for the past nearly 2 years now. 2 years, because end of 2019. So like it's fuck me, it's been a long time. It's one of those things where I could see the old me and what he was sort of saying in that, because at the time that was the right approach for me personally to have. But times change and so must I. And at that moment, at that period, it was like, do you know what? This is a guy I can rely on, and this is a dude that I can work with, consistently. And then there's not going to be like a major, or there's a guy I can work with, and I don't believe he's going to blow up in my face at any one point, which hasn't happened yet. Couple of close occasions, but there's not that many. So I think we're on a good track.
Yeah. I mean, I can really agree with like all of this and can relate to that kind of stuff. I mean. Personally, as a caster, always like, if there's someone where I'm just like doing up with and I feel like there's something wrong and it's nothing big, I'm almost just like, it's not worth pointing out, to be honest. Like, will I cast with this person again? And then again, how will they take it and all? So it's much different to actually have a duo and where you work with together as well. And then, of course, there's the synergy part, because I feel like something which is really important, because often casters, they go into, especially with less experience, including myself as well in the past, you go into it and you lack the bit of confidence as well. On top of that, you're not sure, like, what do I need to do to actually get further? What am I doing wrong? Sometimes that's in your head as well. And then you always like, you go super serious. You don't have fun at all. And then it's even harder to kind of like have those fun parts as casters if you don't have the synergy. So that's what I also feel like. You're a duo now. You and Dweg. You can also have more like, you can add more fun to it, and you also know what to expect from each other when you do certain things, when you bring certain things up and everything. So
I mean,
yeah,
on that point, actually, like I was actually looking through a bunch of clips that I put out on Twitter because, if those of you who don't know me, my Twitter feed often has like clips of me
cast
casting,
reactions.
but with like cast reactions with what it looks like from me and Dweg's perspective. And I was looking through that, and there was actually this one clip where Nickelback was playing an eco round, and he did this like 500 IQ play where he's playing the P250 in jungle. Yeah, and I was looking back at it, and I was actually paying close attention to the commentary itself, because me and Dweg had like a bit of a back and forth. Not in the sense that I was casting for 45 seconds, he was casting for 45 seconds. It was like, I say my bit, he comes in with something, I say something, he says something, back and forth like that over the course of about a minute or so. So like it was like a really cool moment. I was like, you know, that was a really like vindicating moment for me. Like just looking at that clip earlier and just saying, actually, this is a really, really solid sort of style that we've got going for ourselves. Even if sometimes I don't see it myself, the end product looks good, the end product sounds good, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and you just couldn't do that with any other caster like that.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah, we get along for sure, but I don't think we could have gotten that done, because we wouldn't be like, hey, when can we actually like swap over? Can we swap over and all of this kind of stuff? This is just something you and Dweg really can do as a duo as well. So that's of course also big for you too. And yeah, I mean, you got major gigs we already talked about, and with that said, like quickly throwing that in for any casters who are gonna watch this. Would you just be like, hey, right away, get a duo, let's go? Or would you be like, what would your tips generally be like, really just some quick, small tips for casters when it comes to general casting, but also to like kind of forming a duo as well for the future?
Well, on the part about duos in general, like I think the first thing to say is don't throw yourself into it. Like, cause there were several points where I wanted to say, hey, let's duo. Like I mentioned, Dweg was the third guy I ever connected with. The first guy I ever connected with was Hawker, actually. We were doing a WESG at the time. I think the B stream of the European finals, something along those lines. And I thought to myself, like, this really works. Like this is a duo that could really work. And Hawker's a guy that he's such a fucking talented commentator that you could probably insert him with any other professional caster and have magic and have gold. You know, there were other reasons why I didn't want to pursue that particular duo, and the course of history could have been changed entirely, maybe for the better. I want to say, I think, honestly, for the worst, because I think that, you know, Hawker found an even better partner in Dinko later down the road, and I don't think that me and him could have worked as much as him and Dinko. So I see that as like being like not necessarily like a bullet dodged, because I think they still could have been good, but I don't think it could have been as good as me and Dweg. So it's one of those things where, as a duo, don't just jump straight in and be like, I want to, you know, commentate with you only, because sometimes it takes that little bit of time before you figure out what works for you and what works for your partner or something along those lines. Like it is a good idea just to experiment and try different duo casters out. You know, ask your tournament organizer, or maybe if you do streaming for ESCA, you know, advanced, or if you're in the Premier broadcasting program, just jump in and just like invite people on that you think might work well with you, and just be like, you know, 1 week I want to work with this guy and 1 week I want to work with that guy. You know, let's do a couple of different things, and let's just swap things about and try and figure out you know, who's the best partner for this, essentially, because it's not going to be the same dude every single time. And the first guy, I mean, the first guy that I ever commentated with was a guy called Joey. You don't even know who he is, like, you know, like and he never really went anywhere in commentary. So if I said to myself, I'm going to work with this guy for the rest of my career, none of us would have gotten anywhere. So as much as I give like positive, like, you know, descriptions about a duo, those positives only ever come when you you know, when you find the right duo. It's not a case of it will just work you know, immediately. Like Dweg and I were casting long before we decided to duo it up, back in, you know, 2017, when we were working with eFrag. Like we were doing commentary on and off back when we were swapping things about, and even back then it didn't quite feel that right. Like Dweg keeps bringing up this one cobblestone match where there was like a big ace, which he remembers so vividly. I can't remember it not that much at all, and the reason why I can't remember it that much is because every time he plays it to me, the casting is so horrible by comparison to what we do right now. Like the difference is just so noticeable, especially when you watch events like a Cologne or any of the other work we've done in the last couple of years. So, you know, even the best duos don't surfaced themselves immediately. You know, like I remember when I first worked with Dweg, I thought to myself, I don't think this guy's particularly all that good.
Oh, I did that with you too. No, just kidding.
Wow.
Just kidding. No,
I remember thinking to myself that I didn't think that Dweg was all that good back then. And to his credit, he wasn't, and neither was I. So
yeah.
I mean, you know, it's a case that you've got to you got to pick and choose your moments. Don't just jump in head first and say this is going to be my future, because that's oftentimes going to be a very bad idea.
Yeah, I agree with this. So in the end, you would though say, like, just a quick answer, you would still say as soon as you, like, someone finds the right duo, so for example for you and Dweg, as soon as you find this, you had an easier time to actually find, like, consistent gigs as well, and just, like, rise up your level.
Well, I mean, it was a bit more difficult to find consistent gigs at the start, because once we had gotten our start, it was sort of like, because the first TO we worked with was UCC, and for those of you who don't know anything about UCC, they don't really give a shit about their English commentary standards. So when they were like, we want to bring you on for a little bit, I worked with UCC before a little bit in the previous couple of years, and what happened is they basically said we want to work with a duo, and I was like, okay, can I bring this guy on, and can we do things? Can me and him do things? And then, you know, that was the first thing, because the only reason why I got that gig was because UCC don't give a shit. But for me, like, you know, when the real work started pouring in was when Dweg sort of like started doing his little, like, behind the scenes business stuff. Because when he was at Blast, he learned a lot of cool things about how you present yourself and how you know, present a product. And in the case of the product, it was me and him as a commentary duo. And at the start, it was very difficult to get gigs. I remember when we were in the duo, I did when we started the duo, I did the IEM qualifiers for North America. That was all a solo cast job. Dweg got none of that. So it's never easy at the start, especially at the start. So, you know, it's one of those things where it won't come together in an instant.
Yeah, you just gotta find, like, your gigs and be like, hey, can I add that cast in, and see where you can and where you can't. But yeah, for sure, in the end, it was worth it to always work on that. And you mentioned a company earlier. Which I have bad memories about, and I feel like we come to the point. I think we talked about a lot of amazing stories, some struggles as well, of course. But you talked about eFrag. They don't exist anymore. So for those who don't know, eFrag, before they kind of like imploded, they were like owing a lot of casters money, and I think after that, I think it was directly after that where they just suddenly vanished. They disappeared. I think they got bought out by another company, which also disappeared. But
So what I think happened with eFrag was basically, I don't think they were bought out by another company. I think that they tried to pull a bit of a fraud thing. Now, and this fair enough. This is all speculation, and this is all you know, my personal opinion of what I think happened with eFrag. So eFrag went under. Mac One was the guy who was managing eFrag at the time, and he basically put out a bunch of tweets saying eFrag is no more. I tried to bring it back. I tried to do the right thing, but it didn't quite work out. Not sure how truthful that is, considering the conversations I had with him behind the scenes, but I won't get into that. And then eFrag basically went silent, and then suddenly on HLTV, there's this new channel listed there called CDE. I'm like, what's CDE? Collateral Damage Entertainment. This is okay. I'm looking at okay. This is interesting. What? That's the eFrag studio. What the fuck? I just checked the clips. Holy shit, that's me! What? Go to the Twitter page, and it follows me. I follow it. I've never seen this page. It's got roughly the amount of followers as eFrag did at the time, and then I go through their tweets have all been deleted, but they've still got liked tweets that reference at eFragNet, and I'm like, this is fucking eFrag. I was so shocked. I was like, they're pulling some fraud bullshit right here. I contacted whoever the fuck I could to get the guy out, to get the news out. I was like, look, this is what I think has happened on the basis of what I see, on the basis of my personal experience with eFrag. And I was so shocked they tried to pull that shit. I'm glad they never got away with it, because CDE died in its ass after that. I think they were even disingenuous to UCC, who they were partnered with to do the English broadcast for that particular tournament. I think it was like GG Bet Shuffle or some shit. And so UCC called them on that, because apparently they, from what I understand, is that UCC got lied to as well about who CDE were. So It was a whole shit show, and I remember it so vividly because I was there in conversation. We had like a big Skype group chat of everybody who was owed money by eFrag, and we're like, holy fuck, what are they doing here? And mate, like that's still got to be one of the big sort of like what the fuck moments of my entire career. Just how can you have the gall to do that? Say you've gone out of business, you cannot pay anybody that you owe, and then, you know, repurpose everything. Because it's like, how can you find a buyer in that particular time? And if that's the case, the buyer should also have to buy the debts, shouldn't they? Like if they're going to buy out the business, they should also inherit the debt of the business as well. So where's my fucking money? Like, where is it? So it was that whole shit show was just something else. Like that was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And again, I'm glad that they didn't get away with it. But sorry, I've cut you off entirely. I know you had like a question about eFrag, so I just to throw that out there of how just ridiculous that situation was.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure that eFrag, I mean, they didn't even pay well, but even then, they owed casters at least, like, altogether, at least, like, 5 digits of, like, euros. And, yeah, anyways, what I was leading to is to kind of...
along those lines. I know that there are a few casters that were owed a couple thousand. I'm not going to say...
Yeah, exactly. So if you put it all together, I'm pretty sure you get to
I mean, look, the chat of people who were owed money was, like, 25 casters, so there was a lot of people that were owed money. So I wouldn't be shocked if it was in 5 digits, and that doesn't even take into account the TWC money that never got paid, the Razor Rising Stars money that never got paid. What else did they do? I can't even remember. Fuck, so much shit, man. So much money that those guys just disappeared into a black hole. And yeah, that eFrag. The worst part about the eFrag situation is that I stood by them like through thick and thin. When they were getting all this shit, when the TWC, because the first controversy that eFrag had was the first controversy that I was personally involved in, or I was partial to at the time, was when the TWC money was revealed not to have been paid. And I stood there, and behind the scenes, it was all like, this is all Azubu's fault because they didn't pay out their royalties. And I was like, well, just fuck Azubu then. And I stood by eFrag only for them to do that to me. So, I mean, looking back in hindsight, I can understand where, you know, 21-year-old me was like, you know, sympathetic, but like, yeah, that company was scum.
Yeah, for sure. So what I was leading on to, of course, I was leading to bad stories. We heard one now already with like the whole eFrag fiasco, but what was like your, like kind of your fall stories? Where were you at a point, or were you ever at a point where you just felt like even as far as of stopping, or you felt like things are not working out?
Not with eFrag. Fortunately for me, like I got recognized quite a lot by a bunch of different people. I started working with ESEA, and I started working directly with UCC, and I started working with guys like Starladder at the time. So like I was getting a lot of great opportunities elsewhere. So for me, it was kind of like just a bit of a leap off period where, the working environment was different, but like the motivation didn't disappear because I lost out on money. And I'll just say right now, I wasn't owed the most amount of money. I was owed, my final total of unpaid work was about 780 euros, which is a lot of money. But like, compared to the money I'm making today, that's nothing. And definitely compared to the money that other people were owed, that's definitely nothing at that time. Yeah. So I was on the lower end of what was owed money. So it wasn't the worst thing in the world. And again, I got opportunities elsewhere. So for me, I was fine. You know, I was more than fine. eFrag, the only thing eFrag did was piss me off. Because it's like I'm a poor guy, you know. I come from a very poor background, so the notion that you're gonna take 780 euros away from me is still it's ridiculous. Like that's the kind of thing I can't stand by, because that's literally food out of my mouth. And with eFrag, like the process of paying out the debts was really like workaround and shit, because we were talking and I was like, I need my money. They were offering me work and I was like, I'm not taking work until you pay me the money that you owe me. And Mach 1 reached out to me and said, we're going to try to pay you the money. Okay, can we sort out, you know, some sort of process? And they were like, just taking days upon days upon days to message me back. And like, right, I've given you plenty of leniency. Tell me what's going on, or I'm just going to go public with it. Still got nothing, and I tweeted out like something like, "Can't wait for these bitches to pay me money," which got his attention. I didn't tag him, but it got his attention. He was like, "Don't start calling us bitches on Twitter." I'm like, "I'll call you whatever the fuck you want. Pay me my money." And then they got to a situation where they started paying me like €200 a month till the debt was settled, which of course it never got settled because after like 2 months they stopped paying. The only bad stories I have is just stuff again that pissed me off, like just real frustrations and real sort of anger in that moment. But it wasn't anything that affected my career too much because there was other places to go and I was making more inroads. The plan was never to stay with eFrag till the very end, and I didn't, because if you stay with one company to the very end, then you're going nowhere. If I stay with eFrag to the very end, my career's over. If I prioritized eFrag over StarLadder, over ESL, then my career is over. Sure. Like that was never the plan for me, and I knew that going into it. I had a bit of loyalty because the guys behind the scenes were really good. And when it comes to working with the production company, the production side and the commentators and the analysts that were in studio at the time, that was all a joy. That was all an absolute joy. So I can't fault Remus, Voich, Alex, anybody who was part of that team, because my issues were always the backroom and the management guys.
Yeah. But like, were there other like moments in your career actually where it really went like somewhere downhill, where you fell down, or did you actually like consistently have this kind of upwards path with some like bumps, including eFrag?
Well, there's another scumbag called Ben Bag, who I can talk about very quickly. For those of you who don't know, actually, there's a great video from Richard Lewis about Kaz Esports. A very, very good video, about 45 minutes long. It's very funny. Worth it to just the deathmatch warm-up and just sort of listen to it in the background, because it talks about this owner called Ben Bag, who had basically sent his team to a dream hack and didn't pay them any of the per diem or anything that they offered them. Like hotel costs, they didn't book the hotels, meal costs, they didn't pay out the money that they were supposed to give them. And they also, they did this thing where they promised a salary if you can win at the event, and they won their 3 BYOC tournaments, didn't get a salary. So there was a big hoo-ha about it. Ben Bag leaves Kaz, he comes back and forms this thing called UK Gaming Tours, which is sort of like, it was a league, and I think it's still registered on my Wikipedia, actually. I don't remember if someone put it up there. But it's it was a tournament that came about, and it was an interesting concept, because it was like this thing like, let's bring Counter-Strike to the masses. So let's do our league, and let's host our finals in like a public space, like a mall or, a high street or something like that, and we'll put it together. The thing about it is that Ben Bag is a scumbag, and he didn't pay us, like, at all. And there was even a period of time where we went on strike, essentially. We were like, the collective admin team, the commentary team, the broadcasting team, we all just said, pay us what you owe us, or we're not going live this week. And we didn't go live that week. And that was really demoralizing, because it was good money. It was really good money that he was offering, but he was just completely incompetent, and he didn't come in with the best of intentions. So when that all happened, that was really demoralizing. I got my offer to do I-60 at the time. And going into that event, I was so burnt out by all the bullshit. And it's a thing as well, like a few months prior, I was doing ECS. I won the Costa Challenge just at the tail end of the previous year. So having to go through all that bullshit and just be, working with eFrag and, getting paid nothing to be able to do all these events and doing it day in and day out, trying to get this esports dream to work for me, because I'd also dropped out of university at the time, so pressure was at an all-time high. And just trying to work through that going into that LAN event, which I-Series is always my highlight whenever I get to work it of the year. So just going into that feeling that burnt out, I genuinely thought, if this goes wrong, I'm going to go back to university. If this event doesn't work out for me, I'm out. I'm done. Unfortunately, it did go really well. It was a really great event, and ever since then, I've had some really, really good times. So it's funny to think as well about, I-60 in general, because it was a bit of a shit show for various reasons, but that only BYOCs can be shit shows for. But for me personally, I look back on that one so fondly.
Yeah, okay, that's great to hear, of course. But yeah, I mean, and that's like the thing I think about casting as well. And of course, like you gotta work hard at some point, because gotta know at one point if it works out, and you kind of set yourself or you told yourself, okay, if that doesn't work out, I'm going back to university. So in another universe, EternalJay actually doesn't even cast anymore, you know. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's always a way to go, and as you said earlier at the beginning already, you started in 2015. After 6 years now, you do like Intel Extreme Master 16 Cologne, which is so far your biggest event, biggest achievement. But of course, you want to grow even further, and I mean, at least to like towards the end of the show, I'd say, let's talk about like what is your actually like goal, especially with Dweg right now. What, like, you want to of course for sure reach even further. What are you working on, and like what are your next steps to get even further?
So I think the next thing for us, I mean, the thing we're working on right now is to be like consistently part of those B streams of S tier tournaments, like your IEMs and like your ESL Pro Leagues, which we're making good headway and progress on at the moment. Going into next year is the big things. We want to start doing some LAN events. And obviously that hasn't been possible for the last couple of years because of reasons. But, you know, going forward and going into, you know, when those LAN events start popping up, and there have been some discussions around that, there have been some things that could possibly get planned. Nothing massive, like we're not going to start, you know, doing the major. Although I'd love to do that. Like, by all means,
for sure.
if you want to hit me up, I've already been to Sweden once, so the hotel was right outside the Avicii Arena. So, I mean, that works for me. Yeah, just trying to get to that next little stage and sort of like become established as not like a, I mean, not like a tier 1 talent, but sort of like one of those guys that could be considered as an alternative to the tier 1 talents. One of those guys who could rock a B stream, or could do a DreamHack Open, or something along those lines. Because the scene is just, I think that I've got a lot to offer to the Counter-Strike space. And I mean, the end goal for me, obviously, is to try and be one of the top guys in the industry. I think if you're getting into it for any reason other than that, you're probably, you know, not on the right path. But in my opinion, personally, I mean, maybe you could just want to be a tier 2 caster forever, in which case that's fair enough. But for me, like, I want to be able to you know, work on at least an S tier event, to do an arena cast, to be able to have my voice fill up those halls, because I think I could do it, and I think I have something to offer in that department. So it's baby steps, but for now, like, going forward, like, just get those LAN events in, get those B streams up, and you know, see where it goes. Maybe it's Counter-Strike, maybe it's a different game, maybe it's I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we will see for sure. And of course, everyone who now, as we come to an end, like to listen to this interview as well and wants to follow the EternalJay, well, if you didn't do yet, which you should, of course, you see the @ on the screen as well. It's @TheEternalJay on Twitter, and you tweet anytime you go live, especially for those big events, of course, anyways. So if you want to follow his path as well, of course, don't forget to follow him on Twitter for sure. And of course, the next interview is gonna be with Dweg, with your Cisco partner, hearing some stories from him as well. And of course, if anyone actually made it to here, to this point, don't forget, yet again, like and subscribe to support the channel as well. I will do a lot more of this content in the future. And of course, also, shout out to you, Jay, and thank you for coming to the show, to be the first one who does it. So like later on in a few years, when I get like 1 million viewers per video, I'm gonna look at this and just be like, that was the point.
No, this has been fantastic. Like, this has been like a real blast from the past. Like, we've known each other for the majority of those 6 years, and you know, it is great to hear your voice again and to be able to do this. Like, it's just been such joy, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again. I mean, there's a lot more I'd love to talk about. Definitely got to find some time in the near future. But you know, I wish you the best of luck myself. So if you're watching from my personal feed, go subscribe to Josh. He's an absolute genius.
Thanks a lot. And yeah, yet again, thank you for being here, and thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you back for the next interview. The next one will be with Dweg, and everything else, of course, like announcement, anything you will see on my Twitter as well, and when I go put those videos live and all of this. So thank you yet again to everyone here watching, to you, Jay. don't forget to like and subscribe.